Good day everyone, this is the Module 3 of Engineering Economics. This is still about money, time, and relationships and equivalence, but now here are the methods or the concepts under it. The deferred annuities, uniform series, equivalence calculations, uniform arithmetic gradient, geometric sequence, varying interest, nominal and effective interest, compounding more often, and continuous compounding. So dito, duration niya 2 weeks, and yung introduction niya is same lang dun sa module 2. Kasi under din naman siya ng money, time, relationships, and equivalence. Okay? So after careful study of this module, you should be able to do the following. First, solve the problems including deferred annuities, understand the concept of equivalence calculations, solve problems involving cash flows with uniform arithmetic gradient, understand the concept of geometric sequences. 5. Solve problems including varying interest. 6. Understand the concept of nominal and effective interest. And 7 is to solve problems including compounding more often and continuous compounding. So for the pre-test, it is the same with the pre-test in the previous modules. Okay? So for the lesson proper, so dito sa pre-test nyo, pwede nyo na lang ito isabay yung sagot nito sa pagpapasa ng sagot nyo sa module na to. Okay? So sa lesson proper, deferred annuities na or uniform series. So by definitions, pag sinabi mong ordinary annuity, it involves the first cash flows being made at the end of the first period. So sinasama niya yung unang cash flow doon sa end ng first period. Pag deferred annuity naman, it involves cash flow that does not begin until some later date. So, meron ka pang some later date dito pag deferred. So, the first payment is made at the end of the period, J plus I. So, magkakaroon ng plus, okay? Assuming that all periods involved are equal in length. So, J stands for period. So, dito sa deferred, yung J dyan, yung stands for periods. Tapos, yung periods na yan, I less than doon sa capital letter N. Ibig sabihin, dun sa pinaka-total na period, kung ilang beses man siyang i-compound interest o babayaran. Okay? So, the present equivalent at the end period of J of an annuity with cash flows of amount A is from equation P. So, ito, tandaan nyo itong equation na to. Okay? Dinagdagan lang ng minus J. Okay? The present equivalent of the single amount, yan o, may minus J lang, as of time 0 will be then, yun. Ito yung pinaka formula niya. Okay? So, the present equivalent of the single amount as of time 0. Okay, so ito yung cash flow niya. Yan, times time present, so 0. End of period, 1. Tapos, pansin nyo, kada isa, nagma-minus lang o. J minus 1. Pagdating dito naman, J na lang, tapos J plus 1, J plus 2, J plus 3. Hanggang dito sa N minus 1, hanggang yung pinakadulo na N. Okay? So, dito lang nag-a-apply ng percentage dito sa may J. Okay? Dito sa 1 tsaka J plus 1, wala pa. So, kasi pag sinabi mo kasing deferred, no, hindi pa siya nagsisimula yung cash flow. Ibig sabihin, wala pang mga arrows yan. Dito pa lang nagsimula yung cash flow until some date later. Okay? So, ito yung general cash flow representation of a deferred annuity for uniform series. Okay? For example na, example 1-1, the present equivalent of deferred annuity. To illustrate the preceding discussion, suppose that a father on the day of his son is born wishes to determine what lump sum would have to be paid into account bearing interest of 12% per year to provide withdrawals of 2,000 pesos on each son's 18th and 19th, 20th, and 21st birthday. So, yun, yung tatay gusto niyang malaman kung ano yung present amount na kapag magwe-withdraw siya, na kapag napanganak yung anak niya, tapos tumungtong ng edad na 18 hanggang 21, okay, dapat maka-withdraw siya ng 2,000, okay, para sa 18, 19, 20, hanggang 21 kada isa. So, solution, the problem is represented in the following cash flow diagram. So, may cash flow diagram dito. So, one should first recognize that an ordinary annuity for 4 withdrawals, kasi apat to eh, 18, 19, 20, 21. So, apat, 4 withdrawals of 2,000 each is involved, and that the present equivalent of this annuity occurs at the 17th birthday. Okay? Bakit 17? Kasi bago yun mag-18. Okay? So, bago mag-18 doon, nag-occur yung yung present equivalent of this annuity. Ibig sabihin, doon magmumula yung present amount. Okay? So ito yung formula, yung P-A percentage as N minus J. Factor is utilized. So, in this problem, ang N niya ay 21 kasi pinakadulo ay 21. Tapos, yung J niya ay 17. Okay? So, paano nga ulit nakuha yung 17? Siya yung 1 period before yung pinakaunang period. Okay? So, it is often helpful to use a subscript with P or F to denote the respective point in time. So, gagamit tayo ng subscript. Halimbawa, ito, P sub 17, ibig sabihin, yan yung present amount noong dito sa year 17. Okay? Tapos ito yung formula niya, yung tandaan nyo yung finding A given P or finding P given A. Okay? So, ito yun sa pangalawang module nyo. Ito rin yung formula niya. Or pwede ka rin tumingin dun sa appendix C. Okay? Pwede mo makita yan. So, yan P given A. 12%, tapos ito yung, kasi apat na periods to eh. Okay? So, ang annuity mo dyan dito ay 2,000 nga sinabi sa problem. Tapos, ito ay magiging 3.0373. So, saan to nakuha? It's either ginamit yung formula na ito, okay? Or tinignan na lang doon sa appendix C. Okay? Tapos, minultiply is equal to 6,074.6 pesos. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, yun yung present amount noong P17, okay? P sub 17. Dito siya, okay? So, note that the dash arrow in the cash flow diagram denoting P17, ito yung dash arrow hanggang 17 kasi 2 hanggang 17. Okay? Now that P17 is known, the next step is to calculate P sub 0. So, nakuha mo na itong P17, ito naman i-calculate yung P sub 0. Okay? So, with respect to P sub 0, P17 is the future equivalent. So, ito nga yung future equivalent ni si P sub 17, yung future equivalent ni P sub 0. Kaya nga siya tinawag na F sub 17 itong P sub 17. Naging F sub 17 na siya kasi in reference na rin kay P sub 0. So, money at a given point in time such as the end period of 17 is the same regardless of whether it is called a present equivalent or a future equivalent. So, the same lang sila. Yung nga, nagbabago sila kung saan ka magre-reference. Okay? So, hence, ito yung formula na to. Matatandaan nyo yung finding F. Okay? Finding F, tapos P. Okay? So, given P, finding F, given P, kung natatandaan nyo yung formula. Or kung ayaw nyo ng formula, tingnan nyo na lang doon sa appendix C. So, ang equivalent nito, 12%, saka 17, ay ito. Okay? So, multiply. So, ito yung nakita. 884.46 pesos. So, this is the amount that the father would have to deposit on the day his son is born. So, ito dapat yung amount na i-deposit niya nung mapapanganak na yung anak niya. Okay? 884.46 pesos. Okay? Nagets yung unang example, present equivalent of a deferred annuity. Okay? So, pansin nyo, gumagamit din siya ng parehong formula. Yun nga lang kasi, nagkakaroon tayo ngayon ng iba-ibang references. Okay? So, ganun. Next example 1.1-2. Deferred future value of an annuity. Kung yung kanina, deferred present equivalent of a deferred annuity, may naman deferred value naman. Okay? Deferred future value ng isang annuity. Example, when you take your first job, you decide to start saving right away for your retirement. So, nagsisave ka ng 5,000 pesos per year. Okay? In the company's 401k plan. So, meron 401k plan yung company nyo, which averages 8% interest per year. So, 5 years later, you move to another job and start a new 401k plan. Okay? So, you never get around to merging the funds into two plans. So, naiwan mo yung isang funds dun sa dati mong work. So, if the first plan continued to earn interest, okay, at the rate of 8% per year for 35 years after stop making contributions, how much is the account worth? Okay? Kung magko-continue pa daw yung una mong plan, na ito nga, 8% for 35 years. Ito yung solution. So, the following cash flow diagram clarifies the timing of the cash flows for the original 401k investment plan. So, original or yung una. Kasi ito yung annuity niya, 5,000 per year. Okay? So, hanggang, 5 years. Kasi nga, pagkatapos ng 5 years, lumipat ka na ng ibang work. Okay? So, hanggang 5 years ka lang nagbigay ng annuity o nagbayad doon, naghulog. Okay? So, 6 to 40, wala na yon. Hindi ka na nakapaghulog. Yung nga lang, tinatanong kasi, kung ano yung magiging value. Okay? Kung patuloy pa rin, yung nahulog mo na to, so ilan to? 5. So 25,000. Kung patuloy na mag-earn ng 8% per year for 35 years, kaya nga 40 to kasi nga, pagkatapos ng 5 years, another 35 years naman. Kaya 5 plus 35, kaya 40 yun. Okay? So hanapin natin yung worth niya after 35 years. So, the easiest way to approach this is to first find the future equivalent of the annuity as of time 5. Okay? So, ano ba yung future equivalent niya? So, ito, same na naman yung formula. Okay? Finding F given A. Kasi meron kang A eh. Okay? So, 8% tapos 5 years. So, yung future equivalent niya ito, 29,333 pesos. Okay? Ngayon, para malaman natin yung F sub 40, future value sa 40, yung F sub 5 na nakuha natin ay pwede nating ma-denote as P sub 5 na ngayon. Okay? Pwede natin siyang consider as P sub 5. So, gamitin lang natin yon. Ayan. Same formula, finding F given P. Yung P sub 5 dito yung nakuha natin. Okay? Yan, 8%, tapos 35. So, multiply lang. Ito yon. So, 433,697 pesos. So, yun yung worth nung naiwan niyang investment. Okay? Doon sa dating work. Okay? Nagets? Tayo dito sa equivalence calculations involving multiple interest formula. So, kung magkakaroon tayo ng multiple interest, paano naman? So, this section provides example involving 2 or more equivalence calculations to solve for an unknown quantity. So, the end of year cash flow convention is used. So, gumamit tayo nitong end of year. So, again, the interest rate is constant over the end period's time. Okay? So, example under sa kanya ay itong calculating equivalent P, F, and A values. So, figure 2-1. So, may figure tayo dito. Okay? Ito, figure 2-1. Okay, depicts an example problem with a series of year-end cash flows extending over 8 years. So, tingnan natin. Year-end cash flows, kasi nga kada year may mga cash flows yan hanggang nag-extend dito sa 8 years. Okay? So, same. Kasi may mga situation A, B, C. Okay? Pero, pare-pareho lang sila na may cash flow kada year at saka hanggang 8 years. Okay? Next. The amount of 100 pesos for the first year, 200 for the second, 500 for the third, and 400 pesos for each year from the 4th through the 8th. This could represent something like the expected maintenance expenditures for a certain piece of equipment or payments into a fund. So, example lang ito, pwede siyang mag-represent nung mga nabanggit, okay, or nung iba pa, okay? So, note that the payments are shown at the end of each year, which is a standard assumption. So, lagi naman ganun at the end of this year. For this book and for economic analysis in general, unless we have information into the contrary. So, it is desired to find, so ito yung mga pinapahanap, the present equivalent expenditure, yung P sub 0, then, yung the future equivalent expenditure or yung F sub 8 kasi yun yung nasa dulo eh, di ba? Next, yung the annual equivalent expenditure o yung A, okay? Yung annuities na. So, of these cash flows, if the annual interest rate is 20%, okay? So, for the solution, para kay A, makuha natin yung P sub 0, we need to sum the equivalent values of all the payments as of the beginning to the first year times 0. So, kung natin equivalent values, the required movements of money through time are shown graphically in figure 2-1A. So, itong A. Okay? So, next. Ayan. So, kinuha yung P sub 0. Yung una, yung F sub 1, yung future equivalent ni F sub 1. Sunod, yung future equivalent ni F sub 2, 3, okay? Ayun, hanggang 3. Tapos, yung future equivalent na ng mga annuities na to. Okay? So, pansin nyo, marami siyang computation. Yung una, kinumpute mo itong future equivalent ni 1, future equivalent ni 2, future equivalent ni 3. Okay? So, yung formula, yung sa module 2 nyo rin, okay? Finding F given P. Okay? Then, ito naman, finding F or finding P, okay? Finding P given, given A, okay? So, pareho lang siya dito. Dito naman, finding P given F, okay? Finding P given F. Kung ano yung nandito sa taas, yung slash, yun yung hinahanap. P slash F. Sabihin, P yung hinahanap. Okay? So, puro finding P yan. So, ayan. So, ito, pag kinumpit mo to, yun yung nakuha mo. Ito naman, ito naman. So, pwede ka lang tumingin sa appendix. Okay? So, ito naman, dalawang formula yung ginamit. So, bakit dalawang formula, guys? Kasi ito, pag nakompute mo tong finding P given A, okay, pag nakompute mo yan, magsiserve yan ngayon as, as future amount naman para dito sa formula na to, na finding P given F. Okay? Nagets? Kaya minultiply. Kasi yung mga annuities na to, guys, mga annuities, pag na-solve mo yan, okay, yung future equivalent yan, yan na rin yung magiging future, yung F dito, para dito sa formula na finding P given F dito sa uli. Okay? Kaya yun, hanapin mo to sa appendix, makita mo na equivalent, ito rin, ito. Okay? So, isasum mo lang lahat, guys. Yan, nakuha na 1,203.82. So, ibig sabihin, yun yung present amount at 0 period, 1,203.82. Okay, nuggets? Kung paano kinuha. So, next naman, hanapin naman natin yung, yung F8, kasi pinapanap kay B eh. To find the equivalent F8, we can sum the equivalent values of all payments as of the end of the 8th year. Okay? Or time 8. Okay? So, sa figure 2-1B indicates this. So, ito. So, hanapin natin yung, so, dito, paano ginawa dito? Okay? So, ito, yung una, yung 100, ginamitan mo ng formula na to. Okay? Finding F given P. Okay? Kasi, ang P mo dyan, guys, ito yung 100. Okay? Tapos, yung makuha mo dyan, sama mo dito. Sa makuha sa 8. Tapos, next naman, ito naman, ganun din. Finding F given P. Okay? Gagamitin mo din yung formula. Tapos, pansin nyo to, halimbawa ito 7. Kasi 7 siya. Kasi mula sa 1, 7 na lang periods hanggang 8. Ito naman, mula kay 2, 6 periods. Yan, 6 periods na lang mula kay 8. Papuntang kay 8. Okay? Ito naman, yan, 5 periods naman pag sa 3. So, ganoon din yung formula niya. Magbabago ka lang dito sa may annuities. Okay? Yan, finding F given A. Okay? So, ito 5 to. Kaya 5 yan. So, total mo lang lahat ng yon. Ayan, 5,100. Okay? 5,176.19 pesos. Yun yung nakuha dito. Okay? So, next, sa letter C naman, yung pinapako naman yung annual equivalent expenditure. Ibig sabihin, kada taon na yung kukunin natin equivalent expenditure. Okay? So, dito guys, anong ginamit na formula? So, kung pinapahanap yung annual, syempre, hanapin natin yung annual or yung letter A. Okay? So, yan yung formula niya. Finding A given P. Okay? Kasi, di ba, kada isa yan, may mga present yan. Okay? So, ngayon, paano ito nakuwang annuity na 313.73 pesos? Okay? So, ang gagamitin lang natin dyan, guys, itong formula na to. Finding A given P. So, ano yung P natin dito, guys? Di ba, nakuha na natin to, yung P sub 0? Okay? So, balikan lang natin. Ano ba yung P sub 0? Ito, yung 1,203.82. So, yun, i-multiply lang natin siya, guys, dito. Okay? Multiply nyo lang siya sa formula na to. And pag tumingin ka sa appendix, pag hinahanap mo to, so, ito siya. Yan, 0.2606. Okay? Yan, finding A given P. Tapos, yung katapat niyan guys, yung 0.2606 ay ito, yung year 8. Tapos, dapat 20%, okay? Sa appendix. So, yun, multiply mo lang. Ang lalabas dun guys, ay ito nga, 313.73 pesos. Okay? Kaya siya nakuha. Nagets? Okay? So, next, movements of money through time. However, so, yan yung kadugtong yan nung nasa taas. Itong, indicates these movements of money through time. So, pinapakita kasi nito yung movements of money, okay, through time. Kasi per period yun eh. So, however, since the equivalent P sub 0 is already known, ayun, ginamit nga natin. Okay? Para kay B kanina. Ito naman, para kay C naman, ginamit din natin. Okay? Kaya yun yung nakuha. So, the computation of A from P sub 0 and F sub 8 is shown in those figures, figure C. So, thus, we find that the irregular series payments shown in figure 2-1 is equivalent to 1,203.82 pesos at the time 0, 5,176.19 at the time 8, or a uniform series of 313.73 at the end of each of the 8 years. So, nagets para nakuha yung mga yon. Okay? So, next example, how much is the last payment sa example 2-2? So, in the last module or module 2, we look at paying off a loan early by increasing the annual, okay? The annual payment, okay? So, the 100,000 pesos loan was to be repaid in 30 annual installments. Remember, tandaan yung problem na yon of 8,880 pesos at interest rate of 8% per year. As part of the example, we determine that the loan could be paid in full after 21 years, okay? If the annual payment was increased to 10,000 pesos. Okay, so yun na find out natin dun sa last module. Sa example na yun. So, as with most real-life loans, the final payment will be something different. Okay, usually less. Bakit? Than the annuity amount. This is due to the effect of rounding in the interest calculations. You can pay in fractions or fractions of a cent. So, nagra-round off, guys. So, for this example, determine the amount of 21st and final payments of 100,000 pesos loan when the 20 payments of 10,000 pesos have already been made. Okay? Kung yung 20 payments na yun, nagawa na, okay, hanapin natin ngayon yun. Yung 21st or final payment. So, the interest rate remains 8% per year. So, for the solution, ito yung cash flow diagram for the example. So, ito yung niloan, okay? Nag-loan ng 100,000 pesos. So, saang view to, guys? Kaya nung point of view to, itong cash flow na to. Point of view ni bank o yung nagpautang, okay? Kasi ibig sabihin, expense yan, okay? Pababa eh. So, nung yung nagpautang, may expense na siya ngayon na dito sa cash flow na 100,000 pesos. Okay? So, kada year, ayan, no, kada year, nagbabayad siya ng 10,000 pesos yung nangutang hanggang 20 years. Okay? So, nahanap natin ngayon yung future amount. Ay, napansin nyo guys, so, pag tumalon, 3 hanggang, tumalon hanggang 19. Yan, pwede nyo itong gamitin, yung ganyan, no, parang kidlat, okay? Thunder sign, okay? Lightning sign, pwede gamitin. So, we need to determine the value of F that will make the present equivalent of all loan payments equal to the amount borrowed. Okay? So, we can do this by discounting all the payments to time 0, including the final payment, F, and setting their value equal to 100,000 pesos. So, dito guys, gumamit lang ng mga formulas na to. Okay? Kasi dito sa una guys, ito yung formula ng present equivalent, okay, given A or yung annuity. Okay? So, dito kasi hanapin mo yung present equivalent given ng annuity. Tapos, ipa-plus mo lang dun sa future value, okay, future value given yung present. Kasi guys, dito, pansin nyo, ipagpa-plus lang natin yung dalawa na yun, okay, yung annuity tsaka yung future value. Kasi pag pinag-plus natin yung guys, yung annuity tsaka yung future value given P, dapat equal siya sa 100,000 pesos. Okay? Kaya ngayon sinabi dito, yan o, all the payments from time 0, okay, including the time payment of F, and we will set them the value equal to 100,000. Okay? So yan, kunin mo lang to sa table, okay, appendix C, equivalent niya yan. Okay, tapos ito naman, wala ka pang F na ito kasi ito yung hinahanap mo eh. Okay, hinahanap mo to eh. So, sa formula, ay sa appendix, equivalent niya ito. So, ito, multiply, tas transpose, minus yun, tas divide. Okay? So, nakuha mo na ngayon yung F. F is equal to 9,154.50. So, ganun guys yung pwedeng gawin kapag pinapahanap yung last payment. Okay? Last payment kung meron ka ng yung present value tsaka yung annuities. Okay? So, pwede mong gamitin yon. So, thus, a payment of 9,154.50 pesos is needed at the end year 21 to pay off the loan. Okay? So, dito guys, pansin nyo, hanggang 20 lang siya. Bakit hanggang 20? Kasi hanggang 20 lang naman naghulog ng 10,000. So, dito naman 21 siya kasi nga, hinaharap natin yung future value sa 21. Okay? Next example, 2-3. The present equivalent of British Petroleum's payment schedule. So, what is the present equivalent of value of BP's? So, BP, ibig sabihin yung British Petroleum proposed payment schedule. Given that BP will pay 3 billion pesos at the end of the third quarter of 2010 and another 2 billion in the fourth quarter of 2010. So, 12 additional payments of 1.25 billion each quarter thereafter will result in a total of 20,000 or 20 billion pesos having been paid into the fund. So, this is the interest rate, 3% per quarter. So, for the solution, figure 2-2 shows the cash flow diagram for this situation. So, the present equivalent of the cash flow is, so, punta tayo dito sa figure 2-2. Ayan. Diba sa first period, 3 billion. Second figure, 2 billion. Tapos may annuity na. Ilan to? 1.25 billion. Okay? So, na pinapahanap yung P. Okay? P sub 0. Kasi yung P noong dito sa period 0. Okay? So, ganoon lang din. Hanapin natin yung kada present value. Una, yung 3 billion. So, ayan. Finding P given F. Okay? Ayan, 3 billion. Yung magiging F dyan. Tapos 3%. Okay? Ayan, 3% per quarter. Tapos ito naman, ganun din, finding P given F. Tapos 2 billion naman siya. So, bakit naging 2 naman yung period niya? Kasi pang period 2 siya. Okay? Mula dito sa hinahanap. Pa-plus lang lahat. Sunod yung annuities naman. Given P, given yung annuity na 1.25 billion. Okay? Yan yung formula niya. Tapos pansin nyo, gumamit din siya nito. Multiply mo sa finding P given F. Kasi nga, yung annuity, kaya yung value ng annuity, yung magsisilbing, or yung present value ng annuity, yun yung magsisilbing future naman, okay? Or yun yung magsisilbing future value dito, para makuha mo ngayon yung present dito sa, ano na to, formula na to. Okay? Kaya may multiplication. So, yan, pinag-plus lang lahat. So, 16.53 billion pesos yung sagot. Okay? So, yun yung equivalent ni P sub 0. Kasi hindi siya sa 0. 0 period. Okay? Next example. Example 2-1, determining an unknown annuity amount. So, 2 receipts of 1,000 pesos each are desired at the EOYs or end of the years 10 and 11. Okay? So, pang 10, 11. To make these receipts possible for EOY, annuity amounts will be deposited in a bank at EOYs 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, magde-deposit. So, magkakaroon ng annuity doon. So, the bank's interest rate represented by I is 12% per year. So, ito yung mga pinapahanap. Draw a cash flow diagram for this situation. So, draw muna tayo. Yun. So, ayan, sinabi nung kanina, di ba? Sa periods 2, 3, 4, 5, may annuities doon. Okay? So, may binigay ba na annuities? Na amount? Wala. Okay? Sabi lang, magkakaroon deposit. So, hanapin natin yon. Next, ito, sa 10 and 11, yan, sinabi, tagwa 1,000 pesos yan. Okay? So, yun yung cash flow niya. Yan, o. Cash flow diagram can make seemingly complex problem much clearer. So, the cash flow diagram for this example is shown below. Okay? So, ito yung cash flow diagram niya. Tapos sa B, ano yung pinapanap sa B? Determine the value of A that establishes the equivalence in your cash flow diagram. So, yun yung mag-establish ng equivalence dito sa cash flow diagram na to. So, anong gagawin? Because the unknown annuity, A, ito yung A, begins at EOY 2, it makes sense to establish a reference year for the equivalence calculation. So, doon tayo mag-re-reference sa year 2. One EOY 1. So, remember that the first annuity amounts follow its P equivalent amount, okay, by 1 year. So, may nagpa-follow siya na P equivalent amount by 1 year. So the P equivalent of EOY 1 of the 4A amount is this. Okay? So, gumamit lang ng formula ng finding P given A. Okay? Finding P given A. Yan, yung formula niya. So, wala pa nga tayo ditong wala pa tayong value ng A, okay? So, as is muna yung formula. Next, we calculate the EOY of EOY 1P equivalent of 1,000. So, itong 1,000, okay, na pang 10. And 1,000 yung pang 11 naman. So, paano natin i-compute yun? Finding P given A naman, okay? Kasi, ang given dyan yung A, ano yung A dyan? Yung tagwa 1,000, okay? Yun yung given dyan, yung A. Kaya ngayon, 1,000. Tapos, yan. PA. Ito, tingnan nyo lang sa appendix. Tapos, i-multiply lang natin dito. Okay? So, bakit nga pala siya 2? Kasi dalawang period lang yan, 10 and 11. Okay? So, dalawang period dyan. Para sa annuity na yan. Tapos, yung magiging present value dyan, magiging future value na dito sa formula na to para makuha natin yung P. Okay? So, ayan, ito. Factor is needed to discount the equivalent value of A. So, yun yung pinaka-factor niya. Okay, ito. Amounts at EOY 9 to EOY 1. Bakit EOY 9 to EOY 1? Kasi, yun yung hindi kasama nito ng 10 tsaka 11. Okay? By equating both P equivalent at EOY 1, we can solve for the unknown amount of A. So, i-equals natin siya. Okay guys, equals natin. Kasi, same lang din naman yun. Same lang yung maging value ng equation na to sa dito. Okay, so, ayan, equate natin. Itong una, copy-paste mo lang to, is equal to dito naman. Okay? So, pag sinolve mo yan, yung value nito, pag tingnan mo sa appendix, ito yan, 3.0373. Okay? Ito, pag sinimplify mo, tingnan mo yung value nito sa appendix, tsaka ito, ay 682.63 pesos. So, divide lang both sides. So, ang A ay, dito, yung A dito, okay? Yung A dyan ay 224.75 pesos, okay? So, therefore, we conclude that the deposit of 224.75 pesos at EOYs 2, 3, 4, and 5 are equivalent of 1,000 pesos at EOYs 10, 11 if the interest rate is 12% per year. Okay? So, yun yung sagot doon, yung A. So, inequals lang, guys. Next, letter C naman, now we need to calculate the F equivalent time at time 11 of the 224.75 pesos annuity in years 2, okay, through 5, and the 1,000 pesos annuity in the years 10 and 11. So, kunin natin yung F equivalent or future equivalent, okay? So, dito na guys, ang ginawa, yung formula na finding F given A. Okay, kasi nakuha na natin yung A eh. Okay? So, 4 siya kasi apat na beses lang siya nagulog. Okay? Ito sa period 2 to 5. Okay? Tapos, yung makukuha natin doon na future amount, yun ngayon yung magiging future amount, okay? Dito. Okay? Or yung present amount para dito. Kasi, hanapin din natin yung future amount niya given P. Okay? Kaya nga pinagdikit sila. Ayun, pinagdikit. Plus, pa-plus natin ngayon yung future amount naman nito given yung annuity na ito. Kasi, papansin nyo kasi, dalawa yung annuity natin eh. May annuity tayo dito, tapos may annuity tayo dito. Eh, pinapahanap yung lump sum. Pag sinabi mo kasi lump sum, future value yun. At the end ng year 11. Okay? So, dalawa yung computation natin. Isa dito, tsaka isa dito. So, dito guys, baka magtaka kayo, bakit negative yung 224.75? Kasi dito, mapansin nyo dito sa ating cash flow, mayroon tayong outflow tsaka inflow, okay? Sabihin, yung isa sa kanila dapat maging negative, okay? So, hindi sila pwedeng pareho yung sign. Kaya nga sabi dito, dapat daw ay 0, okay? So, yung sumobra na 0.15, so error lang siya ng pagra-round off. Okay? Nuggets? So, punta tayo ngayon sa uniform arithmetic gradient of cash flow. So, a uniform gradient of cash flows involves receipts for expenses that are projected to increase or decrease by a uniform amount each period, thus constituting an arithmetic sequence of cash flow. Okay, so figure 3-1, ito, is a cash flow diagram. Ito dito. It's a cash flow diagram of a sequence of end-of-period cash flows increasing by a constant amount of G. So, may constant tayo dito in each period. The G is known as the uniform gradient amount. So, yun yung tawag sa kanya. Note that the timing of cash flows on which the derived formulas and tabled values are based is as follows. So, dito siya nakabase yung sa mga na-derive na formulas tsaka sa table. Okay? So, sa mga end of period, ayan, yung multiply kay G. Okay? So, notice that the first uniform gradient cash flow G occurs at the end period 2. Okay? So, sa 2 siya. Bakit? Kasi may 1 siya dito eh. Okay? Sa 2 na. Pansin nyo, kay 2 na siya. Okay? So, I is equal to effective interest rate per period. So, yung pinaka-formula. Dito na-derive yung mga amount ni G. So, figure 3-1, cash flow diagram for a uniform gradient increasing by G pesos per period. So, nag-increase siya. So, ngayon, finding P when given G. Okay? So, the present equivalent or P of the arithmetic sequence of a cash flows shown in figure 3-1 is, so, mula dito, sa figure na to, na-derive yung formula na to. Okay? So, if we add in the dummy term, to represent the missing cash flow at time 1, we can write the above equations as, so pwede natin yung summarize as ganito. Okay? P is equal to the gradient multiplied by the summation of quantity n minus 1 over the quantity 1 plus I raised to n as n goes to 1 from 1 to n. Okay? So, recognizing the above equation as the summation of geometric sequence, we can make the appropriate substitutions. After some algebraic manipulation we have. So, ito guys, sinubstitute lang doon sa doon sa formula nung sa may annuity, okay? Tapos, nagkaroon ng konting algebraic manipulation. So, ito yung lumabas na formula for finding P. So, siya ngayon yung formula natin na 3-1, okay? So, the term in braces, so ito yung naka-brace, okay, sa loob. In equation 3-1 is called the gradient, okay? Tawag sa kanya gradient to present equivalent conversion factor, okay? Kasi present yung hinahanap dito eh. So, it can also be expressed as this, okay? 1 over I multiplied by finding P given A, I percent, and N, minus N of P, finding P given F, I percent, and N. Okay, so, yan yung mga formula na ginamit guys. Kung paano na-derive to. Okay, so, the numerical values for this factor are given in column 8. So, makikita nyo yung sa appendix C naman. Okay guys? So, makikita nyo sa appendix C. So, dito sa end ng module, merong appendix C. For a wide assortment of I and N values. So, we shall use the functional symbol. So, itong gagamitin, finding P, given G, I percent, tapos yung N for this factor. Hence, ito yung formula natin, 3-2. Okay, pag finding P, given G. Okay? Ngayon naman, finding A when given G. So, diretso na tayo guys sa formula kasi ito, derivation lang naman to eh. So, ito na yung magiging formula niya. Okay? Ayan o. Kung ayaw nyo tumingin dun sa table, okay, appendix, ito lang gamitin yung formula. Okay? So, same lang naman siya dito sa finding A given G. Okay? Ito naman, finding F when given G. So, dinerive ulit, guys. Ito yung formula niya. Okay? Ayan ay finding F given G. computations na. Gagamitan yung formula na yun. O tutingin tayo dun sa appendix. So, be sure to notice that the direct use of gradient conversion factors applies when there is no cash flow at the end period 1. So, kung wala, dapat magagamit lang natin siya guys pag walang cash flow sa period 1. As in example 3-1, itong unang example, there may be an A amount at the end period 1, but it is treated separately. So, as illustrated in examples, since mga susunod na example, a major advantage of using gradient conversion factor computational time savings is realized when n becomes large. Okay, so meron tong advantage, makikita natin sa next na example. So, ito example natin. Suppose that the certain EOY cash flows are expected to be 1,000 pesos for the second year. Yan, second year. Pangalawa, may 1,000 pesos na cash flow. And 2,000 for the third year. And 3,000 for the fourth year. And that if the interest of 15% per year is desired to find. So, hanapin natin yung interest. Okay? So, 15% per year. Okay? So, letter A, hanapin yung present equivalent value of the beginning of the first year. Okay? Kung natin yung present equivalent, ibig sabihin, gagawin natin yung formula ay ito. P sub 0 given G. Okay? Finding P given G. So, letter B naman, find the uniform annual equivalent value at the end of each of the 4 years. So, ang gagamitin natin ito. Okay? Finding A given G. Okay? So, may mga formula tayo doon. So, sa una, the present equivalent can be calculated as this. So, gamit lang yung formula guys sa taas. Or tingin tayo sa appendix. So, P sub 0 is equal to, yan, G. Yan, finding P given G. Okay, so siya ay 3.79. Kasi ang given dito dito guys, ang ginamit na G, yung nasa 2. Okay, yung 1,000. Tapos tingnan natin tong equivalent dito sa appendix. So, titingin tayo sa appendix C. Okay, so pwede nyo balikan yung module 2 nyo. Ito tayo, appendix C. Ayan, under ng 15%. Tapos, ito naman ay, ilan? 4 years. Okay, so 4. Okay, punta tayo sa 4. Tapos, under, sa pang-apat siya, under siya nito. Kasi ito ay finding P given G. So, dito tayo sa finding P given G. Tapos, pang-apat. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. So, ito ay 3.7786. So, tama, 3.786. So, ano lang, ni-round off lang sa 2 decimal, kaya 3.79 yung pinang-multiply. Okay, nagets na nakuha yan. Kaya, nung minultiply, siya ay 3,790. Okay? So, letter B naman, the annual equivalent can be calculated from equation 3-4. So, ito yung equation na yun. Okay? Finding A given G. Okay? So, yung A ulit dyan ay 1,000. Tapos, same lang naman. Okay? Same lang. Yung nga lang, dito tayo magre-reference sa finding A given G. Balik tayo doon. So, dito naman tayo magre-reference. Finding A given G. Ito siya, pang-apat. 1.3263. Ayan o, 1.3263, diba? So, minultiply, naging 1,326.30. Okay? Next, of course, once P sub 0 is known, the value of A can be calculated. So, pwede natin makalculate na yung A. Nakuha natin yung P sub 0 kasi, ayan o, finding A given P na dito. Okay? So, titingin ka lang din ulit sa appendix. Ito yung, ano niya, equivalent niya. Okay? So, si P sub 0 ito. So, multiply lang, equals siya sa 1,326.30. So, yun yung A. Okay? Nuggets? Naman tayo dito sa example 3-2. Present equivalent of an increasing arithmetic gradient series. So, dito guys, huwag kayo malilito. Kaya yung gradient dito ay 1,000. Kasi diba, nagpa-plus lang. Yung 1,000 plus 1,000, naging 2,000 plus 1,000, 3,000. Okay? Kaya 1,000 yung magiging gradient doon. Pag dito sa finding P given G. Okay? Tsaka base rin dito sa sa figure niya, yung kay period 2 talaga, yun lang yung G. Kasi sa 3, 4, yun nag-multiply ka na eh. So, ang hinanap lang kasi ang hinanap sa formula, G lang. Okay, kaya 1,000 yan. Okay? Next, example 3-2, present equivalent of an increasing arithmetic gradient series. So, increasing naman. So, as further example of the use of arithmetic gradient formula, suppose that we have cash flows. So, may mga cash flows tayo. So, end of year, yan, year 1, 5,000, year 2, 6, 3, 7,000, 4, 8,000. So, also assume that we wish to calculate their present equivalent at I 15% per year using gradient conversion factors. Okay? So, hanapin natin yung present equivalent. So, for the solution, the schedule of cash flows is depicted in the left-hand diagram of figure 3-2. So, meron tayo ditong figure 3-2. So, left hand ito. Okay? The right two diagrams, figure 3-2, show the original schedule can be broken into two separate sets of cash flows, an annuity series of 5,000 plus an arithmetic gradient of 1,000 that fits the general gradient model for which factors are tabled. So, ito yung dalawa. Okay? So, pwede siyang maging ganito, na 5,000 lang, pwede naman ganito. Okay? So, the sum present equivalent of these two separate sets of cash flows equal to the present equivalent of the original problem. Okay, so thus, using the symbols shown in figure 3-2, we have, so yun, pwede nating i-plus yung P sub 0, yung P sub 0t, or in total, is equal to P sub 0a plus P sub 0g. Kaya dito, ginamit na formula ay, yung sa una, zoom natin, ginamit na formula, so ito yung ginamit na formula, yung finding A given P. Okay? 15% tapos 4 yung N. Kasi 4 ito eh. Okay, 4. Tapos 15% yung given na I. So, pagpa-plus lang natin. Tapos plus G, finding G, or finding P given G naman. Okay? Kasi dito nga sa una, okay, sa una, meron tayong mga equivalent na mga A. Okay? Mga A dito, okay, A, para makuha natin yung P. Dito naman, may given tayo na gradient, okay, para makuha naman yung P. Okay, so dito, ano yung A natin dito? Ayan, 5,000, okay, given. Tapos, pwede natin makuha yung P dyan. So, equivalent nito sa appendix C ay 2.8550. Tapos, dito naman, ano yung gradient natin? Gradient natin ay 1,000, di ba? Kasi, tama yung pagitan nila, tagwa 1,000. So, ang gradient ay 1,000. Tapos, yung equivalent naman nito, doon sa appendix C, ulit ay 3.79. So, plus lang. Okay, multiply tapos plus. Equals sa 18,065. 18,065 pesos. Okay? So, the annual equivalent of the original cash flows could be calculated with the aid of equation 3-4. Okay, so, yung equation na yon. So, ito yon as follows. So, pinag-plus lang. So, yung total annuity, kinukuha dito. So, yung annuity na 5,000 plus, ito naman yung, hinarap naman dito is yung annuity given gradient naman. Okay? Kasi ang gradient mo nga dito is, yan, 1,000. No? 1,000 gradient. Kasi pagitan nila tago 1,000. Tsaka yun nandito, 1,000 din. Okay? Tapos, ayan, ikunin mo na lang to sa appendix C. Okay, so simplify, multiply, tapos plus, siya ay 6,326.3 pesos. Okay, so A sub T, yung annuity total is equivalent to P sub 0T. Okay, because 6,326.30 pesos, tapos ito, formula, is equal to 18,061 pesos, which is the same value obtained previously. Okay? So, yun yung nakuha natin nung ito, dito. So, subject to round off error. So, meron lang siyang round off error. Okay? Dahil yung sa round off, kaya nagkaiba yung dulo. Pero same lang yan, guys. Okay? So, dito napatunayan natin yung P sub 0 total. Okay? Total dito sa year 0 ay equal lang doon sa annuity total. Yan o, annuity total. Okay? Annuity total, okay, multiply dito sa formula na to. Kasi ang pag binultiply mo dyan, hahanapin mo na ngayon yung P, given yung annuity. Okay? So, next is example 3-3, present equivalent of a decreasing arithmetic gradient series. So, dito naman, kukunin natin yung present equivalent niya nung gradient series na decreasing. Kaya pansin nyo, 8,000, 7,000. So, pababa siya. Okay? Pababa siya hanggang 5,000. So, same lang yung interest rate, 15% per year. Okay? So, dito, sa solution, the right two diagrams for figure 3-3 show how the uniform gradient can be broken into two separate cash flow diagrams. Sabihin itong dalawa, yan, brinoken yung gradient series. Okay? Merong annuities, tapos meron namang, ito, ang gradient. Okay? So, itong annuity na to, ito lagi yan yung nandito sa, ito, yung nasa taas. Kasi pansin nyo dito sa taas, di ba? Yung sa unang example, 5,000 yan, di ba? So, siya yung nandito rin sa 2. Period 1. Okay? So, same lang din dito sa pangalawang example. Kung ano nandito, 8,000, siya yung nandito sa annuity. Tapos, ito na, gradient na to. Okay? Meron silang interval, pare-pareho. Next, in this example, we are subtracting an arithmetic gradient. So, subtracting kasi pababa eh. 1,000 from an annuity series of 8,000 pesos. Okay? Yan, no, pababa siya. Kaya magsusubtract tayo. So, breakdown of cash flows for 3-3. Yan. Kaya pansin nyo, subtract yan guys. Ayan, no. Kasi, pababa siya. So, P sub 0T is equal to, ito, P sub 0A, okay, minus P sub 0G, yung sa gradient. So, dito sa A, ayan, given yung A, tingnan nyo na lang to sa appendix, minus, ito, given yung G. Yung G dyan, 1,000, okay? Kasi pagitan naman nila, 1,000 eh. Okay? Tapos ito, tingnan nyo lang sa appendix, yan. Tapos, yan, evaluate. Equals 19,050 pesos. So, again, the annual equivalent of the original decreasing series of cash flows can be calculated by the same rationale. Same kanina, guys. Pwede natin i-gamitin tong formula na to. Okay? So, yan, yung 8,000, given na A, minus, itong A sub G. So, yung gradient, given yung gradient, hanapin natin yung A. So, yun yung annual equivalent original decreasing series. So, 6,673.7 pesos. Okay? So, tandaan nyo yung mga formulas na yan. So, note from example 3-2 and 3-3 that the present equivalent of 18,065 pesos for an increasing arithmetic gradient series of payments, so yun sa increasing, is different from the present equivalent of 19,050 pesos for an arithmetic gradient of payments of identical amounts. Okay? But with reverse timings, kasi decreasing series naman yun. So this difference would be even greater for higher interest rates in gradient amounts and exemplifies the market effect of the timing cash flows of equivalent values. Mas mataas daw yung difference niyan pag yung mga interest rate ay malalaki. Okay? So next, tayo dito sa 4.0, sequence of cash flows. Okay? So some economic equivalence problems involve projected cash flows patterns that are changing at an average rate of F each period. So, meron tayong changing. Pero, kinuha na muna natin yung average rate niya per period. So, a fixed amount of a commodity that inflates in price at a constant rate each year is typically a situation. So, yun yung kadalasan na application nito. Yung sa inflation. Okay? That can be modeled with a geometric sequence of cash flows. So, the result of EOY, end of the year cash flow, pattern is referred to as geometric gradient series and has the general appearance shown in the next figure 4-1. Okay? So notice that the initial cash flows in this series, A sub 1, occurs at the end period of 1. Okay? And that, ito yan yung pinaka-formula niya. A sub k is equal to the quantity of A sub k minus 1 multiplied by 1 plus F bar. Okay? Such that K is greater than or equal to 2 and less than or equal to N. Okay? So the N term here is, in this geometric sequence, is A sub N is equal to A sub 1 multiplied by the quantity 1 plus F bar raised to N minus 1. Okay? And the common ratio throughout the sequence is this. So, be sure to notice that F bar can be positive or negative. So, tingnan natin dito guys sa kanyang cash flow diagram ng geometric sequence. So, dito, pansin nyo, nag-i-increase lang siya ng exponent. Ayan o. Diba? 1, 2, sabay 3. Okay? Tapos, pagdating dito, sa may minus na, ayan, nagma-minus yung n niya, yun yung magiging exponent mo, tapos ma-minusan mo na nito. Okay? Minus 3. Para kay 2, ang minus ay, yan, 3. Tapos kay 1 naman, ang minus ay 2. Okay? So, nagmula yung pagma-minus na yun dito sa pinakadulo, okay? Pababa. Okay? Tapos pansin nyo guys, yung pinakauna dito is yung A sub 2. Kaya nga nakalagay dito ay, dapat yung K ay greater than or equal to 2. So, hindi siya pwedeng bumaba dito. Okay? Kasi yun yung unang na-multiply ng 1 plus F bar eh. Pansin nyo kasi, di ba? Siya yung unang na-multiply. So, dapat di siya bumaba sa 2. Okay? Pero less than siya dapat dito sa N. Okay? So, yun yung cash flow diagram for geometric sequence of payments. Increasing at a constant rate of F per period. Bakit constant rate yung F? Kasi siya yung minumultiply. Okay? Then, each term in figure 4-1 dito could be discounted or computed at the interest rate I per period to obtain a value of P or F respectively. So, pwede natin gamitin yun para sa computation ng P or F. However, this becomes quite tedious for large n. So, it is convenient to have a single equation instead. So, mas mahaba kasi siya kung mataas yung value ng n. So, magkakaroon tayo ngayon ng equation. So, dito guys, derivation lang yan ng formula. Okay? With connection doon sa mga past formulas natin. So, yun yung mga lumabas na formula, 4-1, 4-2, tsaka 4-3. Okay? So, take note yung mga formulas na yan. Tapos, merong mga condition. Dapat yung F bar ay hindi siya equal kay I. Tapos, ito naman, F bar naman ay ito naman equal kay I. Okay? So meron dalawang conditions. Okay? So, apply natin yung formula. Example 4-1. Equivalence calculations for an increasing geometric gradient series. So, consider the following EOY, ito, geometric sequence of cash flows and determine the PA and F equivalent values. The rate of increase is 20% per year after the first year. Okay? So, tumaas ng 20% after the first year and the interest rate is 25% per year. So guys, gamitin lang natin yung formula ito. Okay? So, ano yung value nito? Yan si annuity sub 1 or A sub 1. Okay? Tapos, 1 minus yung sa formula. Okay, yan. Finding P given F. 25% for. Okay? Tapos, multiply natin dun sa finding F given P. 20% for. So, yan guys. Papansinin nyo. Itong 25 na yan. Okay? Ito yan. Yung I percent. Okay? Tapos, yung F bar naman, F bar percent, ay, ito yung 20%. Ayan, the rate of increase is 20% per year after the first year. Okay? So, may condition siya na ganun. So, yan yung F bar. Okay? Tapos dito, minus lang yung value ni I. Okay? Minusan yung value ni I sa value ni F bar. Okay? So, evaluate. Yung mga ito, tingnan na lang ito sa appendix C. So, ang equals niya ay 3,013 pesos. Okay? So, dito, para makuha yung annuity, given na yung P. So, finding A given P. Nakuha natin P. Okay? 25%. Tapos 4 kasi 4 years. So, ito siya. Tapos, yung pag ginanap naman natin yung future amount or F given P, finding F given P. So, ito siya. Okay? So, naintindihan paano nakuha yung A tsaka F gamit ito? Kasi meron tayong tinatawag dito, pag increasing geometric gradient, asahan nyo na meron tayong F bar, itong rate na to. Okay? Okay, next. Example for dash 2, equivalence calculation for a decreasing, ito naman decreasing naman, okay? Geometric gradient series. Kasi kanina increasing eh. Okay? So, suppose that the geometric gradient, yung kanina example, begins with 1,000. So, magsisimula naman ng 1,000. At EOY, 1, and decreasing by 20%. So, mag-increase naman siya. So, mangyari guys, yung 20%, yan pa rin yung ating F bar. Okay? So, determine P, A, and F under this condition. So, same procedure lang guys. Gamitin natin yung formula. Yan, yung P is equal to, ano yung A sub I? Ayun, sabi, 1,000 daw yung una. A sub I sa 1,000. Yung formula natin, 1 minus, ito ulit, P given F, tas 25%. Kasi same example lang, kaya 4 din to. Tapos, F given P. Okay? So, bakit ito guys ngayon, negative 20%? Bakit siya naging negative? Kasi guys, decreasing ito. So, tatandaan nyo, pag decreasing geometric gradient, yung magiging F bar ay negative. Yan, negative 20%. Okay, so simplify. Itong sa baba, ano lang to, minus lang to. Ito yung I, tas ito yung F bar. Okay? So, maging positive na. Kasi negative siya. So, ang P dyan ay 1,849.38 pesos. So, para makuha yung A, syempre, may P ka na. So, kunin mo lang yung formula ng finding A given P. Okay? So, ito yung sagot kay A. Tapos, si F naman, syempre, may P ka na. Hanapin mo lang yung formula o dun sa appendix yung finding F given P. Okay? Now, next example for dash 3 na, a retirement savings plan. So, meron tayo ditong situation. So, on your 23rd birthday, you decide to invest 4,500 pesos, 10% of your annual salary, okay, in a mutual fund earning. So, 7% per year. So, you will continue to make annual deposits equal to 10% of your annual salary until you retire at age 62. So, 40 years after you started your job. Kasi, 23 plus, or 62 minus 23. So, more or less 40. Okay? So, hindi na sinabi yung 23rd birthday. Okay? So, you expect your salary to increase by an average of 4% each year. So, mangyayari guys, yung 4% na yan, each year yun yung maging F natin. Okay? F bar. During this time, how much money will you have accumulated in your mutual fund when you retire? Okay? So, sa mutual fund, how much daw ma-accumulate? So, since the amount of your deposit is 10% of your salary, each year, the amount, your deposit will increase. Okay? Kasi nagbabago yung salary. Diba? Tumataas. Increase by 4% as your salary increases. Kasi sabi dito, nag-increase ng 4% each year. Okay? So, thus, your deposits constitute geometric gradient series with F is equal to 4% per year. We can use the equation. Yung kanina equation sa taas, guys, yung pa rin. So, ito yung, ayan o, yung A sub 1 mo, 4,500 pa rin. So, 1 minus, ito pa rin yung equation, guys, kanina. Okay, so, simplify, ito yan. So, 101,894 pesos. So, hanapin mo ngayon yung F. Okay, so may P ka na eh. Kasi kunin mo yung future worth sa age na 62. Okay, so sabi dun, ayan, given na 40, diba? 40 years later. So, F given P na to, nakuha mo yung P eh. So, 7% guys, yan, given dito eh. 7%, ayan, per year. So, nakuha mo na, ito ay 1,525,812 pesos. Okay, so this savings plan will make you a millionaire when you retire. So, moral nito guys, start saving early. Okay, so nakuha mo yung future na value na hinahanap. So, next, 5.0, interest rates that vary with time. So, when the interest rate on a loan can vary with time, it is necessary to take floating interest rate. So, may floating interest rate tayo dito into account when determining the future equivalent value of the loan. So, itong example na to, tingnan natin. Saan yung floating interest? So, compounding with changing interest rates. So, magbago-bago yung interest rates. So, Ashia Smith is a 22-year-old senior who used the Stafford Loan Program to borrow 4,000 pesos from 4 years ago when the interest rate was 4.06% per year. So 5,000 pesos was borrowed 3 years ago. So ito nagbabago-bago guys, 3%, 3.42% na. Tapos 2 years naman ago ulit, she borrowed 6,000 naman. So iba na naman guys. Okay? So last year, 7,000 borrowed, iba na naman ang interest. So now she would like to consolidate her debt into a single 20-year loan with 5% fixed annual interest. So yan, iisahin niya na lang. Okay? Kasi iba-iba yung percentage. Gusto niya isa na lang, 20-year na. So if Ashia makes annual payments starting in 1 year to repay her total debt, what is the amount of each payment? Okay? So hanapin natin yon. So the following cash flow diagram clarifies the timing of Ashia's loan and the applicable interest rates. The diagram is drawn using Ashia's viewpoint. So, viewpoint to ni Ashia kasi nga, ayan, nung nagbabaro siya, syempre income sa kanya yon, kaya inflow yun sa kanya. Tapos ito yung pinapahanap guys, yung ihuhulog niya kada taon. So, maging outflow na yun, kaya pababa to. Para mabayaran tong mga hinulog niya, ay mga inutang niya, okay? Or niloan niya. Okay, so katabi niyan yung mga percentage niyan guys. So, but negative to kasi nga ago, okay? 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago. Okay, so before we can find the annual repayment amount, we need to find the current time or time 0. So, yun time 0. Okay? So, equivalent value of the 4 loans. So, this problem can be solved by compounding the amount owed at the beginning of each year by the interest rate that applies to each individual year, so per individual, and repeating this process over the 4 years to obtain the total current equivalent value. So, hanapin mo natin yung total equivalent, current equivalent value. So, dito guys, nagsimula sa F-3. Okay? So, ang present value niya dito ay, ito, 4,000. 4,000. So, mula kasi dito guys, kay negative 4 hanggang negative 3. So, 1 year yan, kaya 1 to. Okay? So, finding F yan, given P. Sa percentage na to. Okay? Tapos, plus sa kanya yung 5,000. Kasi sa 3 years ago, meron din ulit na 5,000 na loan eh. So, pinag-add lang. Okay? So, equals yan sa 9,162.40 pesos. Kasi ito guys, yung nakuha natin sa F sub negative 3, gagamitin natin sa F sub negative 2. Okay? So, siya yung magiging dito sa present value natin. Okay? Tapos, ipa-plus naman natin yung kay negative 2, ay kay 2 years ago or negative 2 na 6,000. Okay? Ayun, 6,000. Tapos, ito pa rin yung formula guys, mag-iiba lang nung percentage kasi iba-iba nga yung percentage eh. Okay? So, ang lalabas yan ay 15,475.75. So, ito gagamitin mo ulit to kay F sub 1. So, same process lang guys. Okay? Ang naiiba lang dyan is, ito yung gagamitin mo, tapos, as yung present value, tapos, may iba rin yung percentage kasi iba-iba nga yung percentage eh. Tsaka yung pa-plus mo, syempre mag-iiba din, corresponding dun sa year. Okay? Ngayon, hanggang dito kay F sub 0 guys. Ayan, wala ka nang ipa-plus niya kay F sub 0 kasi wala namang ni-loan kay F sub 0. Okay? So, gamitan mo siya ng formula na to. So, total niya ay 24,689.22 pesos. Okay? So, notice that it was a simple matter to substitute. Substitute lang dito sa formula na to. Okay? So, equal siya for the non-integer values of I. Okay? So, now that we have the current equivalent value of the amount Ashia borrowed, okay? So, F sub 0 is equal to P sub 0. So, kasi ito rin yung equal ni P sub 0, di ba? So, we can easily compute for her annual repayment amount over 20 years when the interest rate is fixed at 5%. So, gagamitin lang natin guys yung formula ng finding A given P kasi nakakuha na natin yung P sub 0 eh. So, sa P sub 0 yan, yun yung magiging P dito para mahanap natin yung A. Okay? So, tingnan nyo lang ito sa appendix kasi 20 years, di ba? Tas 5%. So, ang lumabas ay 1,980.08 pesos per year. Yun yung magiging annual payment niya. Okay? So, the total principal borrowed was 4,000 pesos, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 is equal to 22,000 pesos. So, notice that a total of 17,601.6 pesos, tapos, multiply dito. Okay? So dito, ito nakuha tong 17,000 mula dito sa computation na to, guys. Okay? So in interest is repaid over the entire 20-year loan period. So mababayaran siya over 20-year loan period. So paano ba to nakuha? Kasi ito yung nakuha mong A, di ba? So pag minultiply mo lang, equal siya dito. Okay? Equal siya dito kasi ma-minus mo ng 22 eh. So mababayaran siya, guys. Okay? Mababayaran. Okay, so kasi ito, equal siya dito sa 17,000. Okay? So, this interest amount is close to the amount of principal originally borrowed. So, malapit lang siya dun sa amount na original na nahiram. Okay? So, moral, borrow as little as possible and repay as quickly as possible to reduce the interest expense. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, ito lang yung nahiram niya, pero napakalaki ng interest. Okay? So, ayan yung moral niyan, guys. So, next, in general, the present equivalent value of cash flow occurring at end of period end can be computed using the equation 4-4. So, itong equation na to, guys. Okay? For example, ayan, meron kang F sub 4, okay, is equal to 1,000 pesos. So, I sub 1. So, dito, guys, yung mga F sub 4, sabihin yung future amount sa period 4, okay? Tapos ito yung mga naiiba-ibang interest rate, okay? Sa period 1, ito yung interest rate, period 2, 3, and 4, naiiba-iba. So yan, kung hanapin mo yung P, okay? Present amount. Yan, gagamitin mo lang yung formula na ito. Kada isa dyan, guys, ha? Kada isa dyan, multiply mo nito, kukunin mo yung formula, kukunin mo equivalent nito ng formula na finding P given F. Kasi given na yung F eh. Okay, 1,000. So, isa-isa yan, guys. Yan, isa-isa. So, pansin nyo, yung interval naman niya is isa-isa lang eh. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So, yung mangyayari, yung N niya, ay puro 1 lang yan. Okay? Tapos, ang mag-iiba-iba lang dyan, itong mga interest rate nga. Okay? So, evaluate mo, yan ay 653 pesos. So, 6.0, nominal and effective interest rate. A nominal interest rate is represented by small letter r. But the actual or effective annual rate on the principal is not equal to r. So, magkaiba sila. Magkaiba yung nominal interest rate sa actual. But something greater. So, mas malaki pa daw yung actual because compounding occurs during the year. Okay? So, the actual or exact rate of interest earned on the principal during 1 year is known as the effective rate. So, effective rate yung actual na yun, or exact rate. So, it should be noted that the effective interest rates are always expressed on an annual basis. Okay? So, unless especially stated otherwise. So, in this text, the effective interest rate per year is customarily designated by, so yung effective interest rate ay consider as I, represented by I, and the nominal interest rate per year considered as R. In engineering economy studies in which compounding is annual, so pareho lang siya, I is equal to R, pag annual, guys. So, the relationship between effective interest, I, and the nominal interest, R, is, so ito, pinaka-equation natin, 6-1. I is equal to, kapag given yung R. Okay, where M is the number of compounding periods per year. So, equation 1 shows why I, so, bakit yung I greater than kay R. Okay? Or yung effective or yung actual interest rate ay greater than yung kay nominal. When yung M naman ay greater than sa 1. Okay? So, the effective rate of interest is useful for describing the compounding effect of interest earned on interest during 1 year. So, para malaman yung compounding effect. So, table 6-1 shows effective rates for various nominal rates and compounding periods. So, ito guys, meron ditong table. Okay, pinapakita. Bawa, annually, ito yung number of compounding periods per year. Kasi ito yung mga kakakibat niya. Okay, na effective rate. Effective rate percent for nominal rate of, ayan, yung mga nominal rate to. Tapos ito yung mga computation ng effective rate. Okay, so ito yung graph niya guys. Ayan yung annual percentage of APR. So, ano yung APR? Annual percentage rate. Okay? So, ayan. Figure 6-1, 1,000 pesos compounded at monthly frequency. Kung yung nominal rate mo ay 12%, tapos yung M mo naman ay 12. Okay? So, yun yung graph niya. So, paano nakuha? Ayan, no? Sinubstitute lang doon sa dinivide lang, okay? Yung 126 divided by 1,000. Yun, para makuha lang yung percentage nun. Okay, nung tinaas. Yung effective annual interest rate. 12%, 12.68%. Okay? So, ito rin siya guys, 12.68. Kasi kung yung M mo ay 12, tapos 12%, ayan 12%, di ba? Yung R, ayan 12.68. Okay? So, ito rin siya. So, punta tayo dito sa example 6-1, effective annual interest rate. So, a credit card company charges an interest rate of 1.375% per month on an unpaid balance, okay, of all accounts. The annual interest rate they claim is this. So, 12 times, kasi kada month, so times mo, 16.5%. What is the effective rate of interest per year being charged by the company? So, gagamitin na dito guys yung formula sa taas. Okay? Ayan, no? So, constant yung 1 dun, di ba? 1 plus, itong nasa taas, ano to? Yan yung R. So, ano ba yung R dito? Ito guys, so kinonvert lang sa decimal. Okay? Tapos, over M. Ano ba yung M? Kasi, per month kasi siya, sa isang year may 12 months. So, 12 raised to 12 yung M minus 1. Okay? So, constant tong na minus 1 na yan. So, siya, ang lumabas ay 0.1781 or 17.81% per year. Yun yung effective rate. Okay? So, note that R is equal to 12. Yan, minultiply 16.5%, which is the APR. Okay? O yung annual percentage rate. In general, it is true that R is the interest rate per period. So, yung R dito guys, yung interest rate per period. And napansin nyo na mas malaki pa rin talaga yung I. Okay? Yung I kesa sa R. Okay? So, next. 7.0, compounding more often than once per year. Okay? So, first part is single amounts. If a nominal interest rate is quoted and the number of compounding periods per year and number of years are known, so kung given yung mga yun, any problem involving future, annual, or present equivalent values can be calculated by straightforward use of equations. Okay? Yung equation 8-2 sa previous module yon, module 2. Ito naman 6-1 yung equation dito. Okay? So, gagamitin natin siya dito sa example 7-1. So, future equivalent when interest is compounded quarterly. Okay? So, suppose that 100 pesos lump sum amount is invested for 10 years at a nominal interest rate of 6% compounded quarterly. How much is it worth at the end of the 10th year? Okay? So, for the solution, there are 4 compounding periods per year. Sabi kasi, a total of 4 eh. Okay? Tapos, bakit 4? Kasi nga, quarterly. Okay? Tapos, 10 years. Kaya 4 times 10. Okay? So, equals 40 interest periods. So, the interest rate per interest period is 6%. Ayan, no? 6% over 4. So, pag dinivide mo yan, para makuha mo yung per period is 1.5%. So, when the values are used in equation 8-2 from module 2, one finds that, so isa-substitute lang natin sa equation na yun. So, ano ba yung equation na yun? Ito. Okay? Substitute natin. Kasi given na yung P eh. Yung P dito ay 100 pesos. Okay? So, yung equivalent niya, so it is equal to 181.40 pesos. So, alternatively, yun yung future niya, future amount. So, alternatively, the effective interest rate from the equation 6-1 is 6.14%. So, guys, nakuha itong 6.14% pag ginamit mo itong equation 6-1. Okay? So, therefore, ayan, kinuha naman siya. Siya naman yung sinubstitute dito. Okay? So, pansin nyo, pareho lang siya, guys. Yan, 181.40 pesos. Okay? Pareho lang siya kasi dito kasi ang ginamit dito ito, yung 1.5. Okay? Kasi 40 na yan eh. Okay, 40. Dito kasi 10 lang guys. Yan, 10. 10 lang to. Kaya same lang siya kung gagamitin mo itong yung na-compute na effective interest rate. Okay? Same lang yung lumabas. Next, uniform series and gradient series. So when there is more than one computed interest period per year, the formulas and the tables for uniform series and gradient series can be used as long as there is a cash flow at the end of each interest period. Okay? So, pwede natin gamitin yun basta meron cash flow, okay? At the end of each interest period. So, dito sa example 7-2, computing a monthly auto payment. So, Stan Moneymaker has a bank loan for 10,000 pesos to pay for his new truck. This loan is to be repaid in equal end-of-the-month installments for 5 years with a nominal interest rate of 12% compounded monthly. What is the amount of each payment? Okay, so, sabihin, each payment, sabihin kung hanapin yung A. Okay, so the number of installment payments is 5 times 12. Bakit ganun? Kasi end of the month. So, kada month, sa loob ng 5 taon. 5 years eh. So, 5 times 12. Kasi meron 12 months isang taon. So, 60 payments yon. So, and the interest rate per month, so, i-divide mo yan guys ng 12. Kasi nga, compounded monthly, tatandaan nyo yan. Kapag may nominal interest ka na binigay, tapos may nakalagay na compounded monthly, so, i-divide mo siya kung ilang beses siya kinompound. So, kada month, so, 12 times siya, kada taon. Kaya dinivide siya ng 12. So, 1%. So, when these values are used in the equation, ito yung sa module, okay? Module 2, 9-8. So, finding A, given P, substitute lang yung 10,000 pesos. Equivalent naman ito sa table ito, 0.0222. So, meron kang 222 pesos. Okay, so yun yung A. Notice that there is a cash flow at the end of each month. Okay, so ito yung maging cash flow at the end of each month, including the month 60. Okay, kasama si month 60 dyan. Next, example 7-3, uniform gradient series and semi-annual compounding. So, dito naman guys, certain operating savings are expected to be 0 at the end of the first 6 months. Kaya nga, nag-expire din yung mga ginagamit na device na nakaka-save, okay? Nakaka-save ng kuryente sa isang kumpanya. Kumbaga, nag-expire din yun. Kaya 0, okay? So, to be 1,000 pesos at the end of the second 6 months, ibig sabihin nun, dito nang galing sa second 6 months. Kasi kada ano dito guys, kada 1, 2, 3, end yan ng 6 months. Ayan, end of 6 months period. 7 per 6 months, second 6 months, third 6 months. So, ibig sabihin nito, sa second 6 months, merong 1,000 pesos. Okay? At the end of 6, to increase by 1,000 pesos at the end of each 6-month period. Ibig sabihin, nag-i-increase siya, kaya pansin nyo, 1,000, naging 2,000. Okay? Pataas ng pataas yun, guys. Okay? So, pansin nyo na yung I dito ay 10%. Okay? Bakit siya 10%? Kasi 20% na naman yung nominal interest rate. So, di-divide mo na naman yun ng 2 kasi semi-annually. Okay? Pag semi-annually, 2 beses sa isang taon. Kaya di-divide by 2 kaya naging 10 yun. Ngayon, ang pinapahanap ito, yung payment. Okay? At the end of which, 6 months. Okay? So, yung symbol na ganito guys, yung dalawang arrow, sabihin yan, equals lang yung dalawa na yan. Okay? So, the interest rate per 6-month period is 10% nga. Okay? So, pansin nyo yung 1 dito, wala siyang value kasi nga sabi 0 eh. Ayun, end of first 6 months, 0 yan. Okay? So, gumamit tayo dito guys ng gradient. Kasi, di ba sa example ng gradient, kailangan wala muna yung first period, tapos na meron lang yung second period. Kaya gradient yan guys. Yung gradient mo dyan yung 1,000. Okay? So, ito, tingnan mo lang dun sa appendix C. Okay? So, yan. Ang nakuwang A ay 3,450.50 pesos. Okay? So, dito na tayo sa interest formulas for continuous compounding and discrete cash flows. So, it is evident that in most enterprises, cash is flowing in and out in a most continuous stream. Okay? So, because cash, whenever it's available, can usually be used profitably. This situation creates opportunities for ever-frequent compounding of the interest earned, so that this condition can be dealt with modeled when continuously compounded interest rates are available. Okay? So, pero yung sinasabi dito guys, yung concept daw ng continuous compounding ay sometimes lang siya ginagamit sa economy studies. So, actually, the effect of this procedure compared with that of discrete compounding is rather small in most cases. So, mas maliit lang effect ng nito, yung compounding nito. Continuous compounding. So yun guys, take note nyo yung mga equation na. Equation 8-1, 2. Kasi gagamitin natin yan. 3, 4, and 5, and 6. Okay, so yung mga equations na yan. So, andito, meron sa table -1, makikita nyo itong mga equivalent equation. Kasi itong mga equivalent equation guys, pwede makita sa appendix D naman. Kaya merong appendix D sa hulihan ng module na to. Okay? So, punta tayo dun sa example niya. First example, continuous compounding and single amounts. So, you have 10,000 pesos to invest for 2 years. Your bank offers 5% interest compounded continuously for funds in a money market account. Assuming 2 additional deposits or withdrawals, how much money will be in that account at the end of 2 years? Okay? So, ito guys, ang pinapahanap yung future value, kaya nga ginamit natin itong formula na to. So itong 10,000, yan yung present amount. Tapos ito guys, yung formula na yan, anong pwede natin magamit? Diba ito rin yan, yung formula na ito, yan o, same lang guys, diba? So, e raised to rn. So, yun yung multiply natin sa present amount. Kasi ang present amount dito ay 10,000. So, ito, e to rn lang to eh. Yung Euler's number guys, diba? Sa calculator nyo, meron dun e. So, yun yun, no? Euler's number. So, evaluate mo lang yun, siya, 11,052 pesos. Okay? So, konting comment lang dyan, if the interest rate was 5% compounded annually, so, ibig sabihin, hindi siya continuously, the account would have been worth. So, pansin nyo guys, mas lumiit. Okay? Mas lumiit. Konti lang naman. Okay? So, yun yung difference niya. Kapag annually naman. Okay? Kasi ito naman gagamitin mo ng formula. Okay? Pag continuously guys, yan yung pinaka-keyword nyo para gamitin yung formula ng continuous compounding. Okay? So, mas mataas lang siya konti. Next, 8-2, continuous compounding and annual payments. Suppose that one has a present loan of 1,000 pesos and desires to determine what equivalent uniform EOY payments A could be obtained from it for 10 years if the nominal interest rate is 20% compounded continuously. O continuously ito guys. So, ibig sabihin nito, pinapakuha yung A. Yan o. So, here we utilize the formulation. Ito. So, anong formula to guys? Di sa continuous. Hanapin mo lang yung finding A given P. Ito guys, so yung finding A given P. Okay? So, pwede mo yung gamitin formula na to. Okay? So, since A given P factor is not tabled for continuous compounding, we substitute its inverse P given A, which is tabled in Appendix D. So guys, sabi dito, dahil itong formula to wala siya dun sa table ng Appendix D, ang pinalit is yung kabaliktaran itong P given A. Okay? So, anong formula ng finding P given A? Ito guys, finding P given A. Pero sabi dito, titingin lang daw, yung ginawa dito, tumingin lang siya sa Appendix D. So, titingnan natin ngayon ito sa Appendix D. Ito. So, finding P given A, 20% 10. Okay? So, ito yung Appendix D. Punta tayo sa 20%. Ito 20%. So, punta tayo dito sa 10. Okay, 10 under ng finding P. Okay, finding P given A. So, 10 sa 10, tapos finding P given A. Ito guys, yung 3.9054. Okay? Kaya nga ito guys, nakita nyo, 3.9054 siya. Okay? So, yung present mo kasi doon is 1,000. Ta-times mo lang yun. Yan. So, meron kang 256 pesos yung A mo. So, note that the answer to this same problem with discrete annual compounding, M is equal to 1 is, so, ito, discrete naman to. Ito yung ginamit, yung formula. So, mas mataas lang siya konti, guys. Okay? Mapapansin nyo lagi na yung continuous compounding ay mas mataas lang konti doon sa discrete compounding. Okay? Next, example 8-3, continuous compounding and semi-annual payments. An individual needs 12,000 pesos immediately as a down payment on a new home. Suppose that he can borrow this money from his insurance company. He must repay the loan in equal payments. Okay, so A na naman yung hanapin, every 6 months. So, every 6 months, semi-annual yun. Over the 8 years, The nominal interest rate being charged is 7% compounded continuously. What is the amount of each payment? Okay, so hanapin natin yung A na yon. So, the nominal interest rate per 6 months is 3.5%. Bakit? Kasi di-divide mo yung 7% sa 2. Thus, A each 6 months, so A each 6 months is 12%. And hanapin mo kasi guys, yung present, yung value ng A kay given P. Okay, so kasi meron ko ng P dito yung 12% eh. So, R is equal to 3.5%. Okay, by substituting the terms in equation 8-6. So, anong formula ng 8-6? So, dito guys, yan, ginamit nga itong formula to. Tapos, kinuha yung inverse niya or nireciprocal siya. Okay? So, dito guys, ginamit yung formula na sa 8-6 kasi yung 3.5% kasi wala siya dun sa table sa appendix. Okay, so kung gagamitin natin, sa substitute natin. So, ito guys, kaya siya naging 12.038 kasi nga ginamit niya yung formula na to dun sa equation 8-6. So, be careful dito sa 3.5. Kapag isa-substitute mo siya sa R, hindi siya 3.5 kasi percentage yan i-convert mo muna sa decimal. Okay, so maging 0.035 yun. Okay? So, nakuha dito ay 997 pesos yung A. Okay? So, yun yung appendix D. And, pwede nyo nasagutan yung post test. Okay, so up to 15. 15 lang naman to. Okay?